can call the meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. Okay. 608, great. Okay. First, do we have any members from the public who would like to speak to the commission? No? Okay. Great. All right. Okay, so the next item is our roll call. So we do have quorum, but as I read everybody's name, if you can just say present in here. So Tisharna Crump, excuse me, present. Oh, yeah, there you are, okay. I think Vanessa Girardeau is excused today. Darby Hickey? Excused. Oh, excused, okay. Cheryl Hamilton? I'm here. Oh, hi, Cheryl. Mark Hecker?
Here.
Bernal Holland?
Present.
Trayvon Kinney? Lisa McNeil? Here. Oh, hi. Giselle O'Neill?
Yeah, she's
Possible. She's also.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, she's on leave. Okay. Walter Peacock. Heather Peeler here. Anissa Rashid. She is on maternity leave. Maggie Ryden here. Margaret Siegel here. Aurora Steinley here. And Mila Yoko here. Okay, we have quorum, so we can move forward with the approval of the agenda. So you folks can see the agenda on the screen and in your packet. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda for today?
So moved.
Second. We're getting better and faster.
Okay. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, all those who approve the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries with unanimous approval. Okay, also everybody in their packet should have the minutes, draft version of the minutes. Are there any changes or revisions that we need to make to the minutes? Okay. So if no changes, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move. Second.
Thank you. Okay, all those voting to approve the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone voting to abstain? Three. Great. The motion carries, let me get the exact count.
We have 10.
Seven.
6. I'm not a non-voting.
Okay, we're speeding along today. Okay, Neil, would you like to provide an update, please, of the office, of the OST office?
Happy to. Updates from the Office of Adult Grant and Youth Outcomes. It's been a couple months. We were focused on the strategic plan, and so we sort of gave really just high-level updates along the way. But we wanted to focus a little bit, and that the OST office now kind of have aligned our work streams to work with 4 strategic priorities. And so one team member will be assigned to assist the chairperson for each of the strategic priorities. So starting with funding and capacity building, the OST team support will be Deborah Eichenbaum, sitting next to Heather. So with that, just some brief updates. The grant, so the summer RFP will be released soon. We plan and anticipate awarding $4.7 million, which is more than double than it was last summer. We're working in partnership with TCHA, DHS, DPR, and DCPS on the RFPs to meet demand and need. We anticipate 3 competitions and 1 request for application. So one RFP will be the Summer Strong DC which awards up to the $125,000, has the financial requirements of the audit or the financial review or a fiscal sponsor. The second RFP, which this committee knows from the previous competition for the community-based organizations, we renamed that to Small Nonprofit Summer Strong DC RFP, and that will award up to $25,000 for the small community-based grants. And that one does not require the audit or the financial review. And the third RFP is something we did last summer, so it's not new. It's the continuation of funding DCHA, DHS. We added DHS as a coordinating entity. So we've expanded the idea of that coordinating entity beyond just the two public housing community, and we'll add the new, that will open by next summer, short-term housing communities for the homeless and those struggling with homes, just trying to find homes. So the short-term housing communities with DHS, and we're hoping 3 of those will open by next summer. And so for that RFP, we anticipate up to $400,000 across 5 locations to serve those families. And then we plan on releasing a request for application at the end of October to specifically serve DPR and DCP summer school sites with afternoon enrichment. And that one is a little bit later, just so the 3 RFPs can be released simultaneously, and then the application a little bit later. And you can ask questions along the way. Capacity building, also related to the funding and capacity building. We are working with Fair Chance to provide a capacity building needs assessment to current grantees in the school year 18-19 or 19-20. No, 18-19. Sorry. School year, it is mandatory for the small nonprofit, so the community-based, those up to $25,000 grants, that new competition. We're requiring it for all of them because we know they're the ones who really need the capacity building. It is optional for the school year grantees. With this assessment, it will give us an overview. It takes about 3 hours to complete, and Fair Chance will provide an aggregate report that we can then use to figure out how we support capacity building across the different organizations. That report should be done by the end of the year. Absolutely.
So, why is it optional for, or why is it mandatory for the small nonprofits and not for the other grantees?
The small nonprofits are the one we had identified that they had the most challenges typically with capacity building, so we mandated them to respond. For the other grantees, which are about 56 different grantees, we made it optional because the sizes vary.
Okay.
So they're the larger organizations as well as small.
But so that means then that the information will be more heavily weighted towards the needs of the small nonprofits.
Hopefully, yes. That's what we're hoping for. And then the last piece is the needs assessment, just an update there. The DC Policy Center is still working on the funding report. And then PSA was hired to do the family, the parent, and youth needs assessment. Both are in draft. We have sent them back for draft versions of number 2. So those will be released hopefully by the end of October, early November. We are aiming for them to present to the commission in December their findings. So the initial report, just so you know, was over 60 pages, and we felt that was way too long for the audience we're trying to make sure the data is there for. And so we asked them to kind of rewrite it to make sure it meets the needs of our audience. Yes?
The DC Policy Center, what was the other group that was working?
PSA, Policy Studies Associate.
And what's their piece of it?
They're doing the parent and youth survey.
Okay, thank you.
Assessment, so this was directly from families. Going to quality. The OS team hired our new manager for the Institute for Youth Development, Kevin Cataldo, down there. Thanks, Kevin. Kevin just started this week. He will be responsible and work with the chairperson for the quality committee, both at the governance level and the strategic plan level. So just a couple updates related to the self-assessment or the program assessment. So new this year, we are requesting all grantees, regardless of what competition you are, to complete a program self-assessment. So that is just your own self-assessment with your team and your program staff at one program, one site. So if you're a multi-site or multi-program, we're saying one. We just want one program assessment from each of our grantees. It takes over 8 hours of just training and hours to complete the the self-assessment. So we felt that was really good just to get everyone on that, and we took off any of the mandated trainings that we had previously required. So the training requirement really comes with the quality work now. So we kind of combine those. And we wanted everyone to start moving toward the same understanding of program quality, just because we heard sort of like the pilot first year and trying to get everyone to understand what it is when we talk about quality and the quality assessment. So this will get everyone on the same page of understanding the domains and the work. So overall, to do the self-assessment, so the 8 hours of training, it takes about 8 hours to really go through the self-assessment with your team and build a consensus score on it. So they're putting a lot of hours into the quality work, even if they're just doing a program self-assessment. So it's an investment in their own development and their staff just to think through that. So I just wanted to recognize the commitment or the requirement that we put on the grantees for that. Then we put onto it what we've called cohort 2 to have that optional, is that they can go on sort of like, you can do the program self-assessment, but if you want the more additional support and the external observer to come in and assess your program using the same tool, that says if you want that commitment and you want to really have that external observer, you have to commit to cohort 2. And that part is optional. That is currently, that application is open until the 15th? 19th. For anyone to apply to be part of cohort 2. And cohort 2 means that they will participate in additional trainings, a lot more than what those new grantees who are just doing the program self-assessment. They'll have an external assessment. They will have to create a program improvement plan based on the data from both scores, see where they're weak at and create a plan, and then implement that plan by the end of the program year, so typically around February through June, and then complete a survey as well. So that process requires a lot more work, and we've opened that up to anyone in the field. And so we're accepting applications for cohort 2 as we speak. And DCPS and TPR are also committed to continue their work within the quality pilot that we're doing. Any questions on the program assessment and cohort 2?
I have a question. So for the self-assessment, will the OST team have access to the information at an aggregate level, or
Yes.
is it really only for the organizations?
So the organizations will complete it and submit it in hard copy paper form to our office.
Okay.
And then we'll aggregate the data.
Okay, and will that be shared with the commission in any way?
Yes, absolutely. We'll share just the aggregate data to the commission, both just the grantees and then cohort 2. We'll separate the two out.
Hard copy, it's not going to be online and shareable that way?
So the assessment you could do, I mean, you enter the scores into a database that's online, but actually to do the consensus, it's actually better to do it with paper.
Okay.
Is just because you're working with a lot of evidence, so you're taking notes on the tool to cite actual evidence of quality. So it's not like you're going into a program and just observing it. You actually have to write evidence of what you're seeing, so you're actually observing it and writing the evidence on the page.
In the future, is it possible to get a copy, an abbreviated copy to read out each meeting?
Sure.
You don't need to word for word, just kind of a high.
Absolutely. We can draft the summary.
I have a question that I'd like to ask. You go to the assessment for fair chance for the smaller nonprofits. How long is that? Like, is that maybe a practice? Do they have like 10 hours of training?
So we haven't decided on what the next steps are. We will take the information to the committee, the funding and capacity building, once the data comes back, the report comes back from Fair Chance. We did not want to contract on services until the data came back. And so part of that will be sharing the aggregate report from Fair Chance to the commission and specifically the subcommittee for the strategic priorities to help decide what the next steps are with it. And then related to the program, just quality, the STAOY, that's the assessment the youth take. It's a youth survey given to just the youth in aggregate to measure how they feel around 3 scales. That complements the quality program quality assessment. So how are the kids feeling in the environment? Do they have a sense of confidence as a whole? So it's not an individual youth assessment that most people think of when you think of a youth assessment. This is on aggregate at a program level. And so all of the grantees and then those who are part of cohort 2, it's optional to start using the SAOY as that measure. So we are mandating it across all of our grantees, at least 30 youth per program, so that we have an idea on a program level how the kids are feeling within a program. And that will kind of align to the quality score, so you can start to see how are the youth feeling and how is the program, the external assessors evaluating a program. So we start to see the big picture of program quality. Any questions on the SAO? Okay. Related to outcomes, the OST team support will be Jeremy Welch-Lovman down at the end there. Jeremy, can you say hi? And so specifically related to data, the OST office has a data sharing agreement with DCPS this year. We hope to start some basic analysis on the OST grantees and the youth served with district funds. So we can start to pull in the academic data with the OST data in our database. We hope to have a similar agreement with OSSI. That one's taken a little bit more time to establish, but the idea is then we can start to see at a high level how the kids are performing in terms of academic and OST support.
And will that be shared with the grantees as well?
The grantees have access to their own data, and then what we will share is the aggregate as a
Okay.
field across the board. But yes, the grantees will have access to it. Go ahead.
Would that be like quarterly, like in terms of, because I'm also thinking about the quality and the improvement plans, like are grantees going to be able to see that like 6 months after so they can't make the adjustments, or is it something that's coming in and constantly being updated?
So it would be quarterly for the academics. So we're not getting the school, so they're going to be the quarters. And then it is dependent on our grantees, of course, putting the information in the database. So we're pulling the data out of what they report in order to give to the district to say, here's the kids being served, their USI, their numbers, and then the exchange happens. This is still also under development, so it is still something new. We are working with providers on what the indicators, what are key things, what are reports that they would like to see. So we're taking feedback and working with providers on this. So this is sort of, we don't really know what the data will look like, but it is something currently under development. But the data sharing agreement is there, and we continue to talk to DCPS as well around what their needs are and thinking about community schools and some other data points on a sort of a system level.
I know the DME is really interested or excited about the opportunity to have attendance data shared more regularly, so that attendance conversation, if you're missing days of school or if you're missing a program, like how can you have a conversation about that with trusted youth practitioners?
That's huge progress. I just, like, someone that was working for the better part of 8 or 9 years trying to get some data sharing to happen, this is significant, like, progressive and good for the system. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have an additional question when it comes to attendance. I know grantees will be sharing the attendance of students who are in the program. Are they also going to receive the attendance of the school so that way they can intervene? Because sometimes students come to program but they don't go to school.
So
That's what we're interested in.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. We have asked DCPS in particular, so charter attendance is a little bit harder, but DCPS, one of the biggest thing in terms of frequency is looking at the attendance data more regularly or trying to get that weekly. The concern is not all the teachers update attendance accurately weekly, and so just trying to manage how we get the data to the providers in a way that is actionable but also not like incorrect information. So there's some tweaks to work out, but yes, attendance, course completion, quarterly grades, assessment scores, and I don't remember what else, but there's a list of data points that we've requested through our data sharing agreement.
And so, will it be, so are all the indicators that are tracked just uniform throughout, or is there any customization by provider?
So there's no customization for providers. So the providers actually won't, so the way the system is built out for the data sharing, just so you know, the providers actually won't see the data, they can only run reports on the data. So what we're looking at is that they can see trends in the data or the change in without actually seeing the actual score. So this is the easiest way to make the data actionable, because looking at an assessment score, a PERC score from a 1 to 2 may not mean a lot to some providers who are not in the education field. So really sharing sort of what does the trend look like for the child. So we're still trying to build it out in a way that makes the data actually actionable, and protecting sort of the actual scores in the FERPA. So part of it is we also require all grantees to have FERPA agreement. So there's just some protection around there to protect both sort of the district with sharing the academic data, So the database is actually protecting the academic and sharing them, allowing them to run reports and indicators on their aggregate kids. What we're trying to figure out is how that looks like on the individual kids. All of the data we collect will be available across all of the grantees or all of those in the database. So they can customize the report, but once we figure out the dashboard, that will stay the same.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of sense to me. I just want to make sure that if there are providers that are intent on impacting academic performance, that they can actually draw them and zero in on that with data versus somebody's really doing something just more physical activity based. Maybe it's just attendance or something, but just curious.
For their health grade. So we're trying to get to the grades to, it's a little bit tricky to get course grades and the actual course name for some courses, especially in high school, makes a difference. Like math doesn't mean as much. And so there's a lot of just sort of conversations to figure out how the data can actually be helpful.
Thanks.
I know we just had a good conversation with our new deputy mayor this afternoon about the aspirational when we get to OSTE's data set. I know we've been talking about the role of the needs assessment, what that tells us about at-risk youth in slots, but we don't actually know. We can't verify right now who's an at-risk youth under the OSTE definition. So we're kind of hoping we're creating more slots for at-risk youth, but we could potentially be creating more slots for students who are not at risk. And so how do we, with future better data sharing, we'd be able to actually better understand our own impact and how much our programs are reaching the kids that we are hoping and wanting them to reach. We're really excited about the progress in a lot of ways.
It is still under development, so we're very excited, but we're also trying to cautious and sort of say development takes a while to kind of refine, and we are trying to get providers input and seeing what indicators. At the conference tomorrow, there's a track that Jeremy will be running with some of the grantees to talk about what kind of outcomes, what kind of indicators as we're thinking about the development itself.
I guess my question falls back onto hers, which was more about the aggregate data. Is there going to be some type of measure, because it's aggregate data and we're talking about some students who are at risk, so for instance, if somebody's in credit recovery, is there some type of difference? So we can see, okay, well, this student is in credit recovery, so we need to pay, because if it's aggregate, you really don't know that information. Is there any progress towards that? Because you might have information coming in and it might say, okay, well, they're doing better, but they're taking 4 credit recovery classes after school. You wouldn't know that. So is there any measures put in place for that as it relates to at-risk, or will there be?
You mean, so there are school day,
So if
can
a
you
student
clarify the
feels,
question?
so if a student feels that if you have a 9th grader and they fail the class, right? And now they're going to 10th grade. Next year, they're going to have to take credit recovery for that 9th grade class, which is technically not a class during the school day. It's a class after school. So you might receive information on their school day classes, but you wouldn't know that, hey, the student is coming to after school programming, but they're in 3 credit recovery classes in addition to the classes that they're taking. So how do we differentiate between that if we're receiving only aggregate data to be able to make moves to adjust per student?
Yeah, so for the after-school data, if we're not getting it from the school, we won't have that. So we would have to figure out how to collect that information and who would provide it. I don't know if that's OSTE, DCPS, or a provider who's been contracted to do credit recovery. And so we would have to look at that, because that's something, I'm not sure if credit recovery was in our data sharing agreement or how that looks like, but we can look into that. And then the last piece is around coordination and collaboration. The OST team support will be Alex Brown down at the end. So related to coordination and collaboration, we've been convening cross agencies in our work. So we've convened a number of meetings to look at how we can start to work together with OSTE, TPR, DCPS, and others around us. So just a few weeks ago, actually in a few weeks. OSSI, DPR, and OST will be meeting to talk about childcare slots, since there are major changes with childcare and that information. So OSSI had asked, like, can we convene DPR just to think about how childcare is being resolved. So that is being scheduled. DCPS just sent an email earlier today saying, hey, we want to convene on this issue with the February recess and what DPR and OST and what we can think about this new week that DCPS has off in February. So that's coming on. So as the system grows, the coordination and collaboration is happening. And we may not always report on it, but the agencies are proactively asking for these meetings, which I think is a great sign around the need to really coordinate and collaborate around the different needs of children and youth across the district. Another issue that has been sort of rising that we hear loud and clear is the need for OST programs to serve students with intellectual and physical disabilities with our grant funds. Currently, we are not funding any organization specifically for this population, but we're hearing it from our outreach, our parent tables, around the need to say unique programming for kids with disabilities. And so that is something we're looking at, starting with the idea of how do we train staff first who have not worked with individuals, how can they feel comfortable serving kids who may be on the higher end, can fit in general programming, general ed programming, and really start to think about inclusive programming, as well as providing more outreach to organizations who do serve this population, saying, hey, we do grant funds. And so that's right now our two-pronged strategy, is thinking about what professional development can we do and what organizations are currently serving these and that may be eligible for our dollars. That's how we're approaching it right now. Both OSSI and our office met with some parents the other day around this issue. So it is something rising in terms of the need in the district that we're hearing pretty clearly.
Is that something that would come up in the capacity assessment?
Probably not the capacity.
Because it's more around organizational effectiveness issues as opposed to programmatic effectiveness.
Yeah, we may see it. It would be in the. I don't remember in the parent needs assessment if anything came out around the need for special needs. I don't think it did. As a district, about 14% of the population of kids have IEPs. So it's something we know there's a need for. So it's just something we're kind of looking at and how can we support it with our existing system.
Where does, moving forward, how with our strategic priorities and us meeting separately on certain things, when you have things like capacity building and coordination and collaboration where they're intervening, so for instance, an example I hear from a lot of organizations is transportation, which falls under capacity building, but it also falls under coordination and collaboration with DCPS. How is there a merger, or how do we hit those two buttons if we're working towards the same goals?
Transportation, that's a big overarching issue. That one definitely came out pretty clear from the parent. The sort of the quick findings that we shared a couple months ago was around transportation. I think that requires a larger conversation in general at the commission to think about who needs to be pulled in, because I think it's even broader than who's at the table and who we're currently working with. Because some of the transportation, as we know, is right now done by Metro, and the kids are using the Metro rails and buses to get to and from school. And so that's other agencies as we think about how we support that.
Since I was stuck in traffic getting here, I got to listen to an interesting piece on WAMU about how Councilmember Grasso is going to have a hearing this fall to talk about transportation issues and the whole question of whether there's any possibility of creating a bus structure for kids, because as we all know, the only people who are entitled to bus service in the district are kids with special needs, and it's a very, very limited number. So just know that as I said, Councilmember Grasso is going to have a hearing, I think it was November. And I think it's the beginning of a conversation, the very, very beginning of a conversation.
Yeah, and that transportation actually I think provided by OSSI that handles the transportation. And so it's a complex issue that I think this commission will start to can talk about and decide where it fits in which bucket, especially as the needs assessment comes out and we think about the different priorities where it fits best.
Well, and it's also been an enormous issue in the whole OST world forever. So transportation is just a big one.
Yeah, think will we later in the meeting talk about how we set the agendas for the different committees, or because the broader question, which I think would be helpful to me, is just like as important things come up, like how do we agendize them or put them in the right places to have them discussed. And then Milo, before we move on, unless it's going to come up later in the agenda, since Kevin is our newest, and I'm going to put you on the spot quickly, so prepare yourself, but since he's the newest member of the OST office, I know I got to be part of the interview process, which was really exciting, and I'm very excited about Kevin joining us and got to see his whole resume. We had a lot of good conversation. And I know you guys will get to know Kevin over, over time through the different work that he'll actually be doing through the Institute. But maybe if we just give Kevin the floor to say a little bit about his experience and what brought him to DC.
Right now.
Is that unless that's going to be
Can I do one more announcement and then we'll
Yes.
pass it off to you?
Yes.
Does that
Please.
work?
Yeah.
Just related to coordination and collaboration, it's not always just thinking across government agencies. I just wanted to share that we're also trying to stay in touch with the collective impact organizations. So we've been working with the DC STEM Network, Raise DC, and the DC Arts and Humanities Education Collaborative, because those are collective impact organizations. So they're not doing direct service, but a lot of our members are part of these other networks. And so making sure that we're not duplicating any of the needs, or that we're trying to align some of the work together. So we continue to work with those organizations sort of doing this work as well, just so that from a grant fee, that we're not asking too much as they join a number of networks across the district. So that's the other piece, just sort of knowing that the office works across the collective impact organizations.
Is it possible to encourage some of them to provide public comment or statement for the commission? Because I think it would be helpful for us to have a better understanding of these networks and how they're operating and how that might intersect with our work.
Yeah, we can ask them. Any other questions on the updates? If not, I would love for Kevin to introduce himself and share a little bit about his past experience in his work.
All right. Well, hello everyone. Good evening. I'm Kevin Cataldo, and I'm the newest member of the OST team. I'm really excited to be here. Just previous experiences. Oh gosh, I've gone from running after-school programming and starting a Head Start grantee several years ago in the Florida area, which was a great experience from working not only just with pre-K children and actually birth through the 5-year-old spectrum, but also getting that grand experience of starting and opening programs from scratch at the community level. Some of my most favorite work is I had the opportunity in Palm Beach County, Florida, to open one of the first what we call beacon centers, which actually replicated more of the communities and schools projects, and in particular the Children's Harlem Zone in New York City several years ago, which reached a specific community, predominantly Hispanic population, and about 25 separate dialects that were spoken in one elementary school. But we opened the school up to really serve the entire community from 6:30 in the morning until 9:30 at night, providing programming for the youth all the way through the school day, after school timing, and then really started generating great middle school and high school youth to come in and participate along with their siblings for volunteer hours and just helping out during summer programming as well. To, as I said, the Head Start component. My big components in regards to after opening the Beacon Center was one of the original team members with Primetime Palm Beach County, which I think was one of the few intermediary organizations that were looking at this work originally several years ago. And so I was a team of 5 at that time, and the organization now has actually increased to over 20 plus staff members. So I originally worked on the our committee board on the beginning developments of professional development opportunities for out-of-school time professionals, moved into the quality component, and then also worked on enhancement programming with a wonderful fund that we received from a taxpaying authority in the county to really create programs and community bonding between our organization and others to go into the programs and then really offer those enhancement opportunities for the youth, which was a great success overall. My most recent in moving into the DC area, which I love DC, it's a great city, is I was transferred up by Nemours Children's Health System, which is a large children's health organization in the northeast sector of the United States. And specifically, we partnered with the former First Lady on her Let's Move Childcare campaign. So I was real big on writing the curriculum for early childcare programs throughout the United States. We worked with about 12 states and communities overall for 6 years. It was funded by the Center for Disease Control, and we reached over 200,000 youth by the time the grant ended on September 28th. So those are the big highlights, but thank you so much for welcoming me. I'm super excited, and I'm looking forward to the work here as well. So thank you.
That's it for the OST office.
So at the conference tomorrow, which I don't know if folks have that from the newsletter or anything you guys want to add on that, but our deputy mayor will be at the conference, and obviously Kevin will too. So opportunity if you want to meet some of our new folks. Tomorrow's a great day to do so if you weren't already planning on attending the convening. And then of course, if you're not able to make that, there'll be future opportunities too.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm sorry. It's just I just keep looking at this. I just want to reiterate points that I believe that from an innovative standpoint, when we look at coordination and collaboration, how we could build capacity through coordination and collaboration by, especially for smaller organizations whose resources are limited. I think coordination and collaboration is a really big piece to bring a lot of smaller nonprofits in on, because if you're spending 35% of your budget on transportation and trying to get into sites, serving more kids, we can serve more kids through coordination and collaboration, but bringing that capacity building focus into that and making sure that that's shown throughout. I know you said this the network and stuff, but I think it's very important that we have smaller organizations and larger in government at the table to really, I think that's a really big problem, that we can really serve more kids. The resources are there, we just have to find a way to really bring them together and honing in on that between the two.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, so the next agenda item is calendaring. So we have a technology to do a poll. So I guess everybody, if you can pull out your cell phone or your laptop, and let's see, you can either go to, I'll read off the website here, poll. Oh, everybody ready?
Give me a second.
Is everybody ready?
Are we pulling up an app or a website?
This is a text.
Oh, it's a text. Oh, okay.
You're gonna text.
Is it just to the 22333 number?
Yeah.
Okay.
Text that number first.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I've turned my phone off, so to be blunt.
So everybody should text the 22333.
Yes.
What are we texting?
That's the number we're texting to, is that correct?
That is the text number you're texting to.
22333.
Should be learn 24, text learn 24 24572.
That's the message we
That's
send?
the message.
The message is learn 2457.
What are we texting to? Can somebody start with the?
Okay, start at the beginning. So the number you're going to text is 22333. And then in your text message, you should type in learn 24, all lowercase, learn 24, and then 572, all together, no spaces.
I'm just gonna charge you $100.
Yeah, but I'm gonna take that bag of yours, so it's. Because I really like that shirt, so.
Well done.
It's going over.
For some reason, my app is not working, but you'll see the results here.
Does everybody have
What's our
a?
online app? option?
Is it pollev.com?
Yes, so it's pollev.com
Minus
/learn24572.
And now, then after we send that message, then we send A, B, C, D, or E.
So we haven't asked the first question.
Oh, sorry.
We're just getting you into the
Slow
poll.
down.
No, I'm still sending.
Okay.
For some reason. But why don't you go ahead and I'll catch up.
Thank you.
So everybody should have, if you've done it through text message, you should have received a message that says you've joined Learn 24 session.
Yeah.
Does everybody have that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We are waiting for their instruction.
First question's on the screen. What time works best to begin the OST Commission? Your options are 5:30, 6, 6:30, or 7. So A is your answer. You text A, and we will see the live results.
Has everybody texted their response?
Final results. I'm going to lock in 3.
Oh, no.
That was decisive.
I'm going to lock it in 3.
Can you enter in more than one? You can't. Can you enter in more than one?
I voted like 7 times. I'm kidding.
We need you.
I can clear the results. We can start over.
Yeah, I'm not, I was lying. I didn't vote.
This is always the Thursday, right?
No, we didn't ask what day of the week. We
Oh,
just
shoot,
said what
hold
time
on,
was
wait.
best.
Okay, then I gotta change.
Okay.
It didn't change my response. It didn't change my response.
Okay, that was a test round. Let's do it one more time.
Okay.
So everybody enter just one choice.
Okay.
For what time of the day would you prefer our commission meetings to take place?
Geneva's still sending.
Has everybody responded?
Mark voted 12 times this time.
Okay, thank you for that. So it looks like 5:30, followed by 6:30.
Well, you could also read it as 60% of respondents say after 6 o'clock.
I was just going to say that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how I was going to push. Is that 6 o'clock is about 40%, if you combine, or 60%. So 40% plus the 20, say 6 p.m., which is why we ended up starting at 6 p.m.
Mhm.
The last poll also showed similar results. The later time works for a lot of the public members, but it's too late. So we did 6:30. Yeah. So 90% say 6:30 if you combine 5:36 and 6:30, like in terms of being able to make it theoretically.
So for this conversation, are we trying to walk away with consensus?
Yeah.
So does anybody have a strong objection for moving away from 6 p.m.? So keeping our commission time at, meeting time at 6?
You mean going up or down?
Yeah, that
Just
matters.
leaving it.
Well, I guess my proposal is let's keep it at 6, but if somebody has a strong objection for moving, or a strong request to move the time up or down, it would be helpful to hear.
I guess I'm a little confused because for me, it's more about, is this just our monthly commission meeting or also with the public? Because I know from a programmatic standpoint, me and most other community organizations are in programming to at least 6. So even if I try to really to 7, so we try to leave 30 minutes early, that's pushing 6:30. But if it's like a once a month thing, just on a Thursday, then I can make that work. But if we're talking about for the commission meetings that we're having with the public, for our committees.
Oh, for the committees.
it's different for me because that's a total, I would say 7, because most members who are gonna come, parents, all of them, they're not gonna be able to adjust to that time.
So this only pertains to the commission meetings, not the
Okay.
committee meetings.
Understood.
So, so the proposal on the table is to keep the commission meetings at 6 p.m. Can everybody live with that?
I think we may gain some people if we move to 6:30.
Okay, can you share more of it?
No, I mean, I think, in general, I agree with Commissioner Crawford in terms of like, if we want this meeting to be more open and conducive to public, participation, a little later helps. I think there's some commissioners who 6 o'clock is a little bit hard to get here, but right on time, I think, that may ease the burden. And, and I'll speak for myself. I know technically for me, like my organization is headquartered in the Midwest, so I'm actually on the clock until 6. So, I get here, but I'm leaving work early to do that. I think that 30 minutes would help. My 2 cents.
I second that.
Especially when you think about East of the River and traffic and.
What else was saying? I actually was one of the people that voted for 6, but now that I hear people speaking, if we look at the data, we haven't been starting at 6 either, even though we're doing it now. So.
Okay. So then, would folks be comfortable with a 6:30 start time? Can we agree? Yeah. All right, 6:30.
Good that the pause.
And I know that it does place a burden on our colleagues who are public servants because it cuts into their personal time. But I think in order to accommodate the most number of members from the public, both as commissioners and as potential participants or observers, the 6:30 time seems like it would be more accommodating. Okay, great.
Or I have a question. In terms of, I know we're trying to really shy away from calling it in, but is that in conflict with folks where the 6:30 time doesn't work?
So we will start to reserve the conference time.
It's in the bylaws, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
it is in the bylaws.
Yeah, so it's in the bylaws.
And I guess I would say that it's in the bylaws, but as a matter of practice, I think the calling in should be a last resort and not a habit for folks. So I just want to clarify that expectation. So again, I understand like people have personal things that come up in their lives and we need to be flexible, but I think in terms of facilitating productive conversation, it's most effective and helpful to have people present.
Agreed.
Your next poll is ready, which is the day of the week. Now it's ready.
And so for this one, we can only select one, or can we select more than one?
I think you can only select one, just the way the poll is.
Okay.
Optimal day of the week. And they consistently have been on Thursdays right now.
This is just commission. And this is just for the commission meeting. Well, it looks like Thursday is a clear preference for the group. So I would propose that we continue with Thursdays. Does anybody want to share a perspective that would, or propose an alternative? Several people voted for Wednesday. I don't know if anybody who selected Wednesday wants to put forward a rationale.
I just ending up going to a lot of events for members that tend to be on Thursdays, but I'm pretty flexible. That was just my reason to change stuff and other conflicts, like there's 2 events happening. That's not good.
And I traditionally teach on Thursdays, but once a month I can adjust.
Thank you. Okay, well, we'll continue with Thursdays. Thank you, everybody, for your flexibility here and compromises where needed. Great. So in terms of the calendar for 2019, my understanding is that we will not necessarily be meeting monthly, that we would be going to an every other month schedule. So hopefully that is a little bit,
Are we done with this?
We're done,
All
yes.
type leave?
Yes, you can leave
Yes.
your poll.
but I think we should have the full calendar at our December meeting, or will we be able to have that before?
We're gonna try to reserve the room, so it's based off of the room availability here. For
Okay.
the big commission meetings, we tried the first Thursday of each month.
Okay.
We will definitely know, I think by the end of November, if the rooms are available.
Okay.
So yes, by the next commission meeting.
Okay, so the committee member, so move on to the next agenda item, which is the committee member discussion. Okay, so I believe Myla shared the application, the member application, and is it in the packet? I didn't
It should be.
Okay. So it should be the last page of the packet. So just as a refresher, this is the application that we would make available to any member of the public that would like to participate on a committee. And I think we agreed to, at our last meeting, that the committee chairs would receive these applications, that people would be invited upon submitting an application to participate in committee meetings. And I think it was after attending 3, they would be voted onto the committee. So that's just the recap of the process. So is there any comment or edits or suggestions that folks would like to make for the application?
Process you just named, that's true for both standing and strategic priority committees?
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
The next step says that applications are selected on a rolling basis, December 31st being the next deadline. Does that mean that notifications of acceptance would be sent out in March?
Well, people would not be accepted until after they've attended 3. So yes, they would be invited to participate in the committee meetings. So, and I think the rolling, if I understand it correctly, is just to give some sense of like kind of deadline. We could accept applications at any point, but just to have a sense of deadline for the public, so that they would know when to make their application available.
How will you select or approve application?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Selection and approval process?
I believe it's up to the committee chair to determine. I'm sorry?
Was it up to the committee chair, the number of people in the committee?
So the question was, is it up to the committee chair to determine the number of people on the committee? I believe so.
And again, this is just for voting
Yes.
members. Anyone can attend a committee meeting and be part of the conversation, but other instances.
Yes.
It feels to me that if the committees are going to meet every other month, with making a 1-year commitment, then asking somebody to come to 3 meetings before they are actually on the committee is a lot. It means that half a year has gone by before you actually get to be a member of the committee and therefore get to vote, is my assumption. Now, I could be wrong. It just feels like you're really going to have to prove yourself for something that you're volunteering to do. And that perhaps, 2 meetings and then being a voting member may be more of an enticement.
Sorry, did we make a determination that committees were meeting every other month, or was it the commission that's meeting every other month? Because I personally feel like if we're doing committees for the public, it might need to be once a month, because then that puts them on a schedule, as compared to us being like, okay, well, I know to come every other month and look at my email, like having the same day every month, the person would know the 4th Thursday or the 4th Wednesday, as compared to, oh, is there a meeting this month?
I believe it's the committee chair who determines the schedule. So, for example, the governance committee would probably meet like once a year. So it's not every committee is going to be required to meet on a every other month basis, just the commission. And as I recall from the discussion at the last meeting, the rationale for having people attend 3 meetings was in order to keep the application short. We still wanted people to give people a chance to participate, but also demonstrate their commitment before having them become voting members of the committee. Is that do other attendees have that same recollection in terms of the rationale? And if he wants to provide other context.
I mean, it seems like we're leaving a lot of discretion up to the committee chairs. So if we wanted to, for example, the governance committee, I guess we wouldn't be coming to that. But if you're meeting once a year, it then takes 3 years for some reason.
Oh, that's true.
So I think if you want to say 3 meetings or a minimum of 3 months of participation, I think if we want to change sort of the frame of it, if you're meeting monthly, then it's 3 meetings. If you're meeting every other month, maybe it's 2. But if we just name, I remember specifically Commissioner Kinney was just concerned that we weren't just letting anyone walk into these meetings and becoming voting members, and there was some agreement in the room.
Right.
So there's a sense that to keep the application short, let's give members of the commission the opportunity to vet members of committees. So I would say if we put in the idea of, let's say they can become voting members after a minimum of 3 months, however many meetings that is, that might be a fix there.
What do others think about that recommendation?
I agree.
That sounds good.
Okay.
I just got a clarifying question. So there, in the 4 strategic committees, one of them is quality, but then there's also a quality and governance standing committee. Why the need for both?
The quality committee is actually combined. The standing committee and the strategic planning committee are combined to one committee.
Okay, so say that one more time.
So the strategic, where are you looking at? I just want to make sure. I'm
The
looking at-
notes
So we're
of the
looking at-
last meeting.
Or
Oh,
we're
okay.
looking at this.
Mhm.
We missed the last
Yeah,
meeting,
no,
so
that's
we
fine.
clearly are missing an important conversation that wasn't reflected in the minutes. And I do apologize for me saying that the minutes were too short, since as we all know.
But you can watch now, that's why.
Ah,
So, okay, so technically there's 4 standing committees and 4 strategic planning committees. The quality committee is both a standing committee and a strategic planning committee. And so we decided to combine those 2 quality committees into one quality committee.
Okay, cool. And now that I look at the application, there's 7.
There's 7, right,
But
7
I was
committees.
looking at the minutes, and then it says 8. So
Okay.
that's okay.
Any other comments? So specifically, again, if folks can take a look at the application, again, our intent was to keep it as short as possible. So in particular, folks who are designated as committee chairs, if you can pay particular attention to make sure that this application would give you information that would be sufficient for making recommendations on voting members of your committee.
And who are the chairs?
I'm going to look on Margaret's page here. So, Renal, you are for the Needs Assessment Committee. Maggie is for the Coordination and Collaboration Committee. Margaret, you are for the Strategic Planning Committee. Mark, you are for the Outcomes Committee. I am for the Governance Committee. And Tasharna, you are for the Funding and Capacity Building Committee.
And commissioners can sit on more than one committee.
Yes, you can.
Can members of the public or other folks sit on more than one?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know.
If they're willing to commit their
Right.
time,
Yeah.
I wouldn't disagree with it. I mean, you have to attend all those meetings before you nominate them.
Okay.
It would be a very committed member of the public.
And if they're committed, I see what you take up.
and do we have somewhere in this in the application packet very brief description of what each committee does?
Yeah, that was sent previously, the committee descriptions to the commission, so it's on the screen, but we do have that document pulled out, which aligns to the strategic plan and some of the text already.
So apologies for being a little bit behind the 8 ball.
That's okay.
I've been drowning in Jewish holidays.
It was sent the 29th, September 29th.
As I said, I've been drowning in Jewish holidays and bronchitis. Between the two, it's, there we go. Got it.
The idea is whenever we're sharing the application, we're sharing that like helper document with
Great,
it.
great.
Okay, so if there are no other comments on the application, then I do want to make sure everybody has a chance to look at the committee member responsibilities, which is on the flip side. You may want to give consideration to the time commitment if that sets the appropriate expectation for members of the public.
Should I just change that to monthly or bi-monthly?
I would recommend saying a minimum, just a minimum of 90 minutes instead of, because it's gonna be different.
That would be approximately 90 minutes every month.
What you saying?
Should be minimum.
Change approximately to say
A minimum, okay.
Is that accurate?
But keep it every other month.
I think
At the
because we
discretion.
said,
At the discretion.
yeah,
Okay.
because other people, different committees are gonna have different timelines.
Okay.
It's a minimum, then we can
It's a
go
minimum.
90 minutes a week if you want.
And I'm sorry, going back very quickly to the application, Mila, do we want to remove that you have a first committee preference and a second committee preference and just ask folks to either indicate which committees they plan to join, like some multiple options?
You just want to check boxes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we, I get what you're saying, but are we concerned that people will then check 7 boxes?
That could
Because they all seem interesting, so. if
Except
we-
for governance.
I mean,
We can keep that, I mean, they may check all 7, and then once they start getting the calendar invites start to pull away, and then we can ask them to like formally apply for one.
okay.
Does that work?
So the intention is to be as accommodating as possible to interested members of the public.
Yeah.
Or just do an application for each one you're interested in. Submit that to each committee chair. Like if I'm interested in 3, I would submit to the 3 chairs and probably do the same content, but I could submit it 3 different.
And I see it's, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I see it says that they can be submitted or have to be submitted to Learn 24, but can they also be done in paper? Is there a way?
Like mailed in or something?
Yeah.
They can email it, I mean, scan it and stuff, but then the video link that they need to give us, so they can just submit something if you're electronically.
I thought the video was in the alternative to writing something. You have to submit a video?
No, it's optional.
It's written or video.
So if they want to submit a paper one, I mean, our office is happy to accept paper applications
Yeah.
too, just by mail, so.
Yes.
So the only thing I'm concerned about is the questions, as it specifically pertains to especially parents and youth. And, sometimes questionnaires, like I can give you myself for an example, like it probably, first time I was asked to be a commissioner, it took me like a month to fill it out, so I was like, these questions, I gotta write, sometimes, I don't know, I know the questions are there for a reason, but maybe can we give like a sample, like to show like, this isn't as hard as it might seem, even though, I'm not saying it seems hard, I'm just saying, to some people who would be really good candidates, they might not be able to, or feel that they can articulate or know exactly what we're asking them to express.
I think it's a good idea.
You can draft a simple response. if somebody wants to draft a sample video, we can record you. Right, Ellen?
Yes.
You know, if somebody would like to be videotaped.
I mean, it sounds like
We can get a student
I don't see,
report.
I don't see it.
I'm working with you.
And I didn't say that.
We have
But-
volunteer.
Commissioner Holland?
Will videotape people?
No, would you be the one responding to these questions? We'll videotape you. You
Oh,
just-
me like answering questions?
Yeah, like if you were an applicant, so we need a sample.
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Okay, perfect.
Like, remember that ethics video we watched that was like really funny?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like it's kind of breaking the ice.
We didn't see that.
Oh.
Like in the one that was in the suite.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Okay, we'll follow up with Commissioner Holland on doing a video sample on a response, and then we can draft a written response.
Just so I understand expectations, to what, I'm imagining on some level that we're expecting commissioners and committee chair people to do some at least informal recruiting, is that?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be another opportunity to sort of help people with the, if you're going after certain people, to be able to help them a little bit in the process. Sometimes the nudge is as good as the sample is.
So any other questions or comments either on the responsibilities or the member application?
Are there any restrictions for adding district government employees to committee?
No, but I thought there was an issue.
On the commission level.
Oh, at the commission level, not at the committee level. Okay.
If they check that not a district resident, is that one of our eligibility criteria?
I think it's just a nice to know. Later questions.
Could it be somebody who works?
I don't know, that's up to the committee to decide, or the commission or the committee person, chairperson. Residency requirement? for
Yeah,
committees.
do you need to be
I don't-
Fine, it's-
I don't.
The providers sometimes live, the employees and providers outside of the district, that would be
Yeah.
my concern, is that you then restrict them.
I think if somebody was a parent and not, or, you know, a youth representative and not a district resident, that would be, I think, a question for the chair, but, yeah, if you had a provider or some other
If they
expert.
moved because of disappointment in the OST system, that would be
That would be
I'm
useful,
serious.
yeah, no.
That could be helpful.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Excuse me.
Commissioner Peck.
All right. Any other questions or concerns?
So in terms of the next steps, the OST office will work with each chairperson on scheduling the first committee meeting, since we are not meeting in November. So the OST office and your team's lead, who was announced today, will work with each individual chairperson on scheduling your first meeting, and then we will make that public and announce that. Tomorrow at the conference, Chairperson Peeler will be making a public announcement on the call for committee members at the conference. And then we will post it in our newsletter, but we do ask commissioners to also post and recruit individuals as well to the different committees. So that is the next steps related to that.
Could you guys provide just like a blurb and then the two proper attachments so that it's super easy for commissioners to be sharing that after?
Yes, we can draft a blurb and then the final version of the documents in Word, and then eventually we'll send you links for the samples once they are available in public and published.
Since we're not meeting in November, just for all commissioners, for us to be aware, is it expectation or an idea that we're gonna be having a committee meeting before December? Like having one
It's
in
up to the
November?
chairperson to decide whether or not the committees will meet in November because of recruitment. We may not have any applications, and the committee person may feel like we need to do more recruitment than post, or they can, so the committee chair can decide. We'll work individually with each committee chairperson on whether or not they think a November meeting is appropriate or not. it's also running into holiday season. So we understand the challenges. So realistically, I think when the governance committee met, they thought like January.
And to your point, like if I'm doing coordination and collaboration, I would probably want to meet sooner than later, because you're right, I think that will take time.
All right. May I have a motion to adjourn, unless there's any other business or discussion?
I just had one clarification, sorry, I will not keep us long, but so the chair people will be setting the agendas, and it's basically, I know we said when we set our strategic plan, we kept it light, and so it's the role of the chairs to now move into the detail in each of those areas, and then when we meet in December, will we kind of see what the committees have been, what progress has been made or what's planned? Just thinking about like how does transportation end up somewhere, like as a practical matter.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea for the December meeting to hear reports from the committee chairs, either whether they've met or what they see as the kind of agenda top issues that they plan to discuss with their committees.
And if we do plan on meeting, if one of the committees does meet in November, will all of us receive notification, like an opportunity to, okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. Somebody want a second? Okay. We don't have to vote, do we? No. Technically we do? Okay. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Most enthusiastic vote of the
Right.
night.
7:19.
Great, thank you, everybody.
Even if we start later, it's still.